Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me.
Slavery in America became an issue that led to division between the North and South and eventually to a civil war. The North abolished slavery several years before the South and started to favor the abolition of slavery throughout the whole nation. All types of citizens, black and white, poor and rich, joined the cause, even those who were constantly marginalized by society. During the 19th century, even female figures were encouraged to rise in favor of the abolition of slavery in America.
One of the most prominent women leaders of this time include the former slave, Harriet Tubman, who escaped from a Maryland plantation to Philadelphia. She was able to find a job and make a living in the Free State. Later on, she decided to return south to escort the rest of her family members, including her parents, sister, niece, and brother. This involved various trips, each which resulted in helping more slaves, eventually making Harriet Tubman a leader in the famous escape route, the Underground Railroad. Throughout her life, she escorted more than 300 slaves to safety in the North. She became referred to as Moses by Frederick Douglass, who claimed that he didn't know of no one who has willingly encountered more perils and hardships to deserve our enslaved people than Harriet Tubman.
In addition to Tubman, Harriet Jacobs was also a fugitive slave who became an influential figure. She was a slave for about 29 years, her hardships including sexual abuse from her owner. After having escaped, she wrote an autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, which contains her description of her encounters as a slave and the abuses she suffered. Jacobs explained how this peculiar phase of slavery has generally been kept veiled, but the public ought to be made acquainted with its monstrous features, and I willingly take the responsibility of representing them with a veil with John. I do this for the sake of my sister in bondage who are suffering wrongs so foul that our ears are too delicate to listen to them. This was a response to the public's shock when they read about this ignored phase of slavery described so vividly.
Skin colors were set aside when white women started to become active members against abolition. One of these important females was Harriet Beecher Stowe, the author of an abolitionist book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. She was from a high class position and mother of 7 children. After the tragic death of one of her sons, she was motivated to join the cause. Stowe described the incident as having left a deep compassion for the sorrowful, especially for mothers who separated from their children.
Lydia Maria Child was a white journalist from Medford, Massachusetts, who played an important role in the abolitionist movement during slavery in the United States. She studied world religions and was also a novelist and editor, but little known today. Lydia was a very religious woman who had many theories. She once wrote, I am apt to regard a system of religion as I do any other beautiful theory. It plays round the imagination, but fails to reach the heart. I wish I could find some religion in which my heart and understanding could unite, that amidst the darkest clouds of this life I might ever be cheered with the mild halo of religious consolation. She kept part of her life in a religious search. Later on, when she returned to Medford, she got influenced by William Lloyd Garrison into the abolitionist movement, but she didn't believe that women could make any progress until slavery was completely abolished. She also believed that white women and slaves were similar because white men treated both groups as property instead of individual human beings. In 1833, she published a book called An Appeal in Favor of That Class of Americans Called Africans, who supported the idea of emancipation of slaves without compensation to slave owners. Miss Childs helped with the fundraising for the first anti-slavery fair and played an important role in the American anti-slavery societies during the 1840s.
Sisters Sarah and Angelina Green were strong abolitionists and women rights activists from South Carolina. Their father was a slave owner. After a while, they moved to Philadelphia due to their strong opposition to slavery. After writing numerous articles and letters against slavery, Angelina posted pamphlet called An Appeal to Christian Women of the South. Her arguments in the writing were that slavery was destroying the institution of marriage by encouraging white slaveholders to father illegitimate children with black slave women. Later on, Sarah also published many articles, but she focused more on women's equal rights. She also argued that African American women should also be treated equally than white women. The sisters published the most powerful anti-slavery tracts of the time. They were very influential in American society. They also got what they worked for by getting slavery in the United States abolished. They also characterized by testifying the impact in African American slaves. The ground upon which you stand is holy ground. They never, never surrendered. If you surrendered, the hope of the slave is extinguished. Agitation for the end of slavery must continue, Angelina declared. Even if abolitionists are persecuted and attacked because, as she put it, this is a cause worth for dying for. This quote shows the passion they had and what they were capable to do for equal rights to all citizens.
Slavery was an enormous issue in the United States during the 19th century. It was obvious that slavery brought great concern to those who came to realize it was unethical and lacked human sensibility. After various revolutions, all kinds of people in society, from the right rich to women to uneducated citizens, were involved to rise in favor of abolition of slavery. In a way, it opened doors to those marginalized from society, as women were, to have their opinions influence the decision abolishing slavery. These brave women were, as Jared Jacobs and Lydia Maria Child have proven how determination and passion does go a long way. They also established a great model of courage for future female generations.